In this video, we take a closer look at Donald Trump's rhetoric at the UN. Rhetoric many callers here in Britain immediately recognized for what it is. Not just political bluster, but language dripping with racism and fear-mongering. Instead of engaging in real debate, Trump leans on tired lies about Sharia law, demonizing entire communities to score cheap points. And once again, it exposes the same pattern, attacking Sadiq Khan, attacking London, and feeding the flames of division simply because he cannot accept a city or a country choosing leaders who don't look like him. Before we dive deeper, make sure to hit like, subscribe, and drop a comment on where you're watching from. It helps keep this conversation alive.
The starting point is that if Sadiq Khan was a white man, this simply wouldn't be happening to him. But the point is this Renee...
Well, you couldn't accuse him, you couldn't lie about him wanting to introduce Sharia law. That is probably confined to people of brown skin, although there are white Muslims. So a white Muslim mayor could be lied about in the same way by Donald Trump, perhaps.
But let's just call it what it is. This kind of racism against Asians always existed. And now what they've done is that they've replaced the horrible P word with calling the Muslim word. And that's all it is. And these racists, they know what they do, and they know why they hide behind certain words. Because, James, in a nutshell, now, I've listened to you for about 13 years now. And one thing you said is Occam's razor. You know, sometimes there's often a simple answer to the most complex of questions. And it is this, is that they just want freedom from consequences. It's not that you can't say what you want. You can. Just like Lucy Connolly found out, but there is consequences. Now, you know, I'm sure your producer told you what I do for a living, and I've plucked up...
she didn't, actually.
I happen to be a barrister, and I can say there's 16 racially aggravated offences, racially, religiously aggravated assault, there's harassment offences, there's inciting racial hatred, and I go on and on. But any one of these offences can land you in court. And as long as these offences are still here, the racists go out of their way to say they're not racist because the law still works and works effectively. And that is their problem.
I see what you mean. Gosh, I mean, I wouldn't have thought of it like that, but trying to actually undermine the legal protections is the rationale for all this nonsense about two-tier justice. Farage wrote a piece for the Daily Mail in which he said, we all know that there are limits to freedom of speech. I thought everyone agreed that incitement to violence was one of them, or incitement to racial hatred. I forget his exact words. And then 48 hours later, Lucy Connolly walks onto the stage at his own party conference. And they claim that there's two-tier... I mean, what's that? Two-tier truth? So they don't like the laws. Saw it a little bit when, after Charlie Kirk was assassinated and people started having kittens if you repeated the words that he spoke. So freedom of speech without any consequences at all, up to and including being reminded of what you did while exercising that freedom of speech. It's surreal, right?
Exactly. Like we live in an era where being called a racist is actually worse than the actual act of racism, and it's gone mad. But
you're right.
It is fueled by the media, and let me explain why. The Greens more or less have the same amount of MPs in Parliament as Reform. Why is it that I can't even cough without seeing Nigel Farage in every single tabloid, every single news feed, every single clip? Yeah, I don't hear nothing about the Green Party. Same amount of membership, maybe even more. But you hear nothing about them, nothing about the Lib Dems. It's a business, hatred is a business model that sells, but the thing that kills the racism and their biggest bugbear is that if I'm a black man, and if I was called the N-word, recorded it, and you called the police, they will be arrested, they'll start with their two-tier, but a judge will lock them up or put them on community service, and they will lose their job. So we have protection criminally, and obviously the Equality Act still stands, and we have protections there, and they hate that. So anything they say that is racist, there is a consequence, and they don't like that. That's the problem. They know for what they can say.
So when I've asked, and I'm not asking it rhetorically, but I think I have answers in my mind when I ask the question, what is it that they think they're not allowed to say? You're suggesting very convincingly that it's the things that are currently protected by law.
Yes.
What else is there? What else is there?
There is nothing else. It's freedom of consequence. I think we've got to the point where Steve Bannon said that people should be proud to be racist, but again, it involves the dismantling of various racially aggravated offences and equality law. And my fear is, and God, I pray it doesn't happen, if Farage and them get to power with the majority, that's what they will aim to do. And that's what people want. People have voted for, sadly, Brexit. And, the current dinghy crisis is all caused because of the Dublin 2, because we left Brexit. It's so obvious. It's infuriating, but people will keep voting against their own interests because
the hatred is so intoxicating, because it works so well, and that is what the button Donald Trump pressed yesterday was the button that said, "Be frightened of brown people."
So, what are we left with? A reminder that Trump's words aren't harmless sound bites. They trickle down, they embolden the worst instincts, and they normalize ideas that should have no place in modern politics. When callers can see the damage so clearly, you have to ask, why can't more leaders call it out with the same honesty? If we fail to challenge this rhetoric, it only grows stronger. Stay informed, stay engaged, and as always, thanks for tuning in.